All right, welcome back to the Media Marketing Podcast with your host, Brian Cargill. I'm excited to be going over 5 tips that are going to change the way that you look at the fall, maybe prepare and organize your content. So let's get started.
Thank you for checking out the Media Marketing Podcast, a place where you can learn all things media and marketing related. Don't miss a beat in boosting your business and your brand. In each episode, you'll gain valuable insights, tools, and strategies to apply to your marketing efforts. And now your host, Brian Cargill.
All right, so today we're talking about the 5 considerations for your fall marketing strategy. Leaves are changing, people's attitudes are changing, and the world has now been dealing with COVID-19 for almost 9 months now. So a lot of changes. I think companies and people are starting to get used to the end of the year. They're getting kind of back into the swing of how things used to normally be. At least that's how it feels to me locally. But this is going to be a shorter episode. I have 5 tips that are going to, help you think about this fall, and especially from a media perspective and a content strategy planning perspective. These are going to be some good tips to help you kind of get to the next level and not just leave you in the dark. See what I did there? Okay, number 1, the days are getting shorter. So if there's shorter days, from my perspective as a videographer, that means I have less time to work with, at least less like natural light that I can work with. And that means the light is going to be changing more rapidly because the days are shorter. So when I'm doing these filming activities during the day, I'm probably going to board up most of the windows. I'm going to put up the blinds, whatever I can to block the sun, and just use the lighting kit that I have. That's my recommendation for folks. If you do have to film outside, make sure it's just quick things. You're not doing hour-long interviews, things of that nature. So that's something that takes into effect and really does affect the video, especially if you're doing a brand video where you're editing and splicing from different interview times in the interview to make a cohesive story. You want to make sure that you're, a lot of it looks similar and sounds the same. Funny how different times of day can really affect that. So also something to keep in mind for your filming efforts. Luckily, as you notice here, I'm filming inside of my apartment, and you can't see any windows outside, but something to keep in mind is that the leaves are changing color. So if you're doing a video and, people can see the background, can see the leaves that you have, something to keep in mind is if you're trying to do a piece that has more time relevance beyond just this fall, maybe you don't choose the leafy background or the different colored changing leaves as your background. Just an idea. Some pieces of the content doesn't really matter, but I would say if you're talking about a specific event or just you're going for a certain look and feel for your organization, say for example, you do some filming and their leaves are the beautiful oranges and reds that they are, and then you want to make an update later in the spring. Well, if they're barren or they're just green leaves, it's going to look different. So something to keep in mind, just kind of continuity. The days are shorter, the days are changing, the backgrounds are changing, and so that's something that's to take into consideration for your productions. Another big tip is tip number 2, that the holidays are coming. So that's something to keep in mind. A big thing that I've seen people do is make culture videos around the holidays. So whether that's, maybe singing carols around the winter season. I'm hesitant to say Christmas because that's not really, I feel like you're kind of ostracizing yourself from a marketing perspective if you're just pegging your organization or you're only celebrating Christmas. I think happy holidays, happy winter celebration, happy new year. These are all things that are a little bit more with the norms of today. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense because then you're not, ostracizing a whole group of people that don't maybe believe or celebrate that specific holiday. So maybe wishing your customers a safe and happy holidays rather than Merry or Happy Christmas. And so, doing videos around that. So maybe you have an announcement that's coming up. Now is the time to start gearing up those strategies and those plans. For specific holidays, if you're looking at doing any big discounts or specials for your customers during this time, highlighting that in media and doing that planning now, especially if you're doing something around, Thanksgiving, if you're doing something around just the new year. Those are typically times when people are willing to spend a little bit more money, is around the holidays and going into the new year. if you're an organization that provides like a software or some kind of product, keep in mind that businesses can write off as an expense. I'm not an accountant by any means, but think about they're probably looking at their budgets and saying, hey, what should we spend at the end of this year? So if you're a company that falls in those categories, now's the time to triple down and really get the messaging out to your customers that you are available and you're a good resource for them. A big thank you to our sponsors over at songtub.com. That's right, song or music and a tub, like a bath, but more fun to say. Tub. Anyway, you can check out Songtub's website for any of your music needs. In fact, the song playing in the background right now is from Songtub. So why pick them over anyone else? Well, they curate the music. And I know the guys, so that means I know that they're selecting great music for your project. A lot of other companies will brag about how many songs they have, maybe 100,000, 200,000, maybe even 1 million. But honestly, I don't have time for that. I don't have the time to just sit down and go next, a song not so great, trying to figure out where the best music is. Songtub.com, great place to get your music. And now I'm excited to offer you the first month for free if you go to songtub.com/pro, P-R-O, and we have a promo code for you. Yes, that's right, my name, your host, Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, and that will give you your first month free to have access to a huge music library that you can use towards your next video project, podcast, or any of your general audio needs. Anyway, back to the show. Tip number 3, this is a great time to start planning your media content. And my recommendation and the Tactus Media recommendation is to create a brand video. If you haven't already done this, this is the video that lives on your website. In about a minute and a half, you explain who you are, why you're unique to all the other companies that might be selling something similar or the same product as you. And it helps to showcase your personality. And who you are is really able to shine through the immersive stylings that is video and audio together, and some music that always adds to the emotional effect too. And so how can you start preparing for this brand video, this one big piece of content? And I think if you were to, I would plan for about a month to 2 month turnaround for this project, because you're going to need to capture the interviews and then get supplemental shots. And then the editing process takes a while, especially to tell a really captivating story. But something that you can do if you don't have in-house video production and you're still looking for vendors, you can start the script writing process now. And a good place to start for that, writing that script, is actually probably with your brand statement, which is a statement that explains who your brand is, really what is the core foundation of, like, why did you start this business and who are you trying to help and what problems are you solving for customers, as well as talking about, some of your values that trickle out beyond that, which is how are you helping the community? How are you helping people? These are things that are important to the consumer. And I think it's a lot more effective to bring those to light and say, what do you stand for? What are the things that you support? And your customers may or may not support that, but you're going to be captivating more customers that are in line with your brand by explaining to them, what it is that you support. So whether that's a nonprofit or an event, any number of those things, highlight those things in a brand video, as long as they're kind of have a long-term relevance. So the tricky thing with these brand videos, the difference between a really good videographer and one that's just trying to get the job done, is the one that's really good is going to be thinking long-term, like how can we maximize the value and time length of this video that goes beyond, thinking about some of those other things, like is the background, does it have leaves that are changing color, thinking beyond how can we use this video beyond just the fall and use it long-term into the years to come. But planning now for the fall, doing a launch kind of in the new year is really exciting. I recommend to people, doing that brand video, or if you're rebranding your organization, maybe you've changed your logo, your look, how you talk about your brand, having that brand video to supplement. This is a good time to start doing that planning, because I think a lot of companies, when they do these rebrands, it comes up in the new year. So some of the other things to think about is your vendor, who's going to make this video. Are you going to film it yourself? Are you going to hire somebody? Are you going to hire somebody local and then outsource the editing? These are all things to think about, because, depending on who you hire, who's going to tell a good story, who's going to feel like a good fit for you, and who's going to maybe go above and beyond to provide not just the service at hand, but see ways that they can support your organization over the long term. So the next one to think about is, the shot ideas within this video too. These are things before you even have the vendor, you can start thinking about the script, and you can start thinking about what do you want to have in the video that highlights who you are. And the best place to start are, what are some of the day-to-day activities? If you're a service provider, sometimes that's the customer service side of things. Maybe it's, the inner lockings, the inner details of you creating, performing that service. For product videos, that's from soup to nuts, how you're making this product, potentially maybe highlighting things that are most interesting, maybe not giving away the secret sauce in this video, but making sure that you're highlighting the CEO, the founders of this organization, at the heart of what is it that drove them to create this product that's providing, it's filling such a big need, in the community. So some things, that's some food for thought, and I would definitely plan for that 1 to 2 month turnaround, because it does take time. So now would be the time to start looking at that, doing some of the groundwork, laying out the floor plan and hiring someone pretty soon, and then aiming for a pretty close to Jan 1 launch would be ideal, because people, relative to the first couple of weeks of January, because people are coming back from vacation, they're hitting the ground running. Maybe they don't really want to be back at work yet, so they're going to do something like go on LinkedIn or go on Facebook. Your brand video is there. They go, a nice way to sit back and watch, a short video about your organization, what you stand for. And something I didn't have in my notes, but making sure that it's more than just audio friendly, but that people can understand and digest your video without needing the audio. So having subtitles, or just having really compelling visuals that tell a story without people needing to hear the content. That's a really big trend for this new year. And speaking about trends, I thought I would just bring this one up one more time. This is tip number 4. Now is the time to start a podcast, because I think with every month, every quarter, every year that goes by, that people keep mentioning, like, oh, start a podcast, it's not necessarily becoming harder, but just there's more options for consumers to choose from. So it really helps to create a podcast. So if you're a dentist and you create a podcast, it really helps if you're the only dentist doing that. If there's 100 other dentists doing it, if there's 100,000 other dentists doing it, well, now you have some competition, and you have to figure out how are you going to be the unique dentist within that space. It's a lot easier being a leader, which we've talked about in this podcast, than it is to try to kind of re-segment and not convince your audience, but convince them that you are different and you're not just a stereotypical dentist, or whatever whatever industry you're in, or whatever product you sell. So, and then I think the reason I put this as a tip number 4, why I even put this as a tip at all, is a lot more people are going to be happy starting a podcast now than waiting till 2021, when they feel even more behind on kind of what the trend is. And a podcast doesn't have to be super complicated. We have on episode 4, I think it is 4, some of the earlier episodes there, podcast your brand. And I explain some of the ways to do that in the early stages. Because I think it does become a little overwhelming. You're like, hey, I don't feel comfortable speaking on camera, what equipment I use, all of those good things. Those are in those early podcasts. So feel free to check those ones out. And something else to consider, that's what we've talked about. Days are shorter. People could be listening to their audio a lot more while they're, working out. Kids are back in school, so people should be more focused during the day. And I think a lot of people listen to the audio in the background while they do things like I mentioned, go to the gym, or if they're, at their desk working, doing their day-to-day activities.
A cactus knows how to survive. It can endure scorching heat, limited rainfall, and defends itself against critters daily. Your business is no different. To survive harsh conditions, it's important to develop deep roots using media content that'll continuously nourish and support your marketing efforts day after day. Tactus Media is here to help you determine a strategy and create media content. Together, let's map out the next sequence of videos, podcasts, and social media to help your business thrive. Work with Tactus Media. Media tactics that stick. Ouch! Visit tactusmedia.com to learn more.
Tip number 5. We've been making good progress here. So tip number 5 is keep up with trends, making sure that your content is mindful and sensitive to all groups, because we are moving into an election season here soon. We have Thanksgiving, end of year celebrations. So what I've heard as a good piece of advice from a lot of other marketers actually is making sure that you're going in and reviewing your different accounts that you use for scheduling content. So whether that is Hootsuite, Buffer, Later, those are all apps that you can just get your content plugged in, and you say it's going to be released at the end of September, early October, and you leave it. But make sure you go back and check on them, because depending on what's happening in the world, being selective, being cognizant, being sensitive, for lack of a better term, to what is happening around us is very important and very crucial, because you don't want to be talking about something completely irrelevant when there's something that's important happening at hand. So, but it's tough waters to navigate with the election season coming up. So I'm not the person to talk about that. I'll leave that somebody else on how to navigate tricky waters. But it's just something to keep in mind. And then also planning content around beyond just events and things that are happening. But this is also a thing or event happening. But the NFL happening in the Stanley Cup. There are sporting events. And there's other activities that are happening in the fall that don't normally happen throughout the rest of the year. And so if you're posting some content, you want to make sure that one of those other things isn't going on, or at least after you do post the content and you're analyzing what happened, say, maybe you can draw the correlation between an event that was happening and maybe why you didn't have as much reach or engagement can be attributed there. So there's some warning flags in this episode. There's some things to maybe get the ball rolling and ways to approach this fall season. So all of these are things to keep in mind for your content and how you're going to continue to build and develop your organization going into the new year, closing out 2020. What an odd year. And then we'll be moving into 2021. People will start over on their goals, but getting a head start on all of that and doing some pre-planning is going to save you a lot of headache, and it's going to be a lot less reactionary to what's happening and being proactive in, how can you have a successful year closing out 2020 in spite of everything that's happened. So hope that's been helpful for you guys. Again, those 5 tips. 1, days are getting shorter and the days are different than they were in the spring. So adapting and being mindful there is always a win. Tip number 2, holidays are coming. Be prepared. Number 3, great time to start planning your media content. Make that brand video if you can. Number 4, starting a podcast. Now is the best time ever to do that. Well, not the best time, but it's better to start now than it is next year. And probably the best time to start one 10 years ago. But it's hard to do that when you're not seeing the results. It's a lot easier today to get a little bit of traction, a little bit of results, because there's a community there. There's an actual audience there that if you're interesting and unique enough, people will come. So tip number 5, keeping up with trends, making sure that you are, I think the big takeaway from this podcast is proactive. So making sure that you're getting out there and seeing what's happening. What's a good way to see trends? The news is a good outlet. Twitter has some good trend metrics there. And then also beyond just like kind of our, day-to-day things that people talk about, seeing what are some trends with products, what are going to be some big, maybe electronics for this fall, and how can you dovetail your company's service or product with some of those launches, some of those releases this year. So, all right. And as always, you can check out the Media Mentor Hub for more tips. So if you go to tactusmedia.com/media-mentor-hub, that'll give you everything you need to know. But I'll put that all in the description, the show notes. You guys have a great day. Thank you for your patience on this episode. I know it was a little bit delayed getting it out there, but that's just part of it. I'm learning. I'm getting better. You guys have a great day. Have a great week.
I want to say a big thanks for tuning into the Media Marketing Podcast. Please subscribe to get notifications for new episodes, which are coming out every Thursday morning, or at least we're striving for that. Feel free to visit our Facebook page where you can like and join the media marketing community. This is a good resource for collaborating, sharing ideas with other media creators, marketers, and those just looking to build their network. So until next time.